Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. So coming to you today, we're going to talk about some velocity slash pressure test results that I got with the 7mm Winchester short mag. I have a Model 70. If you guys haven't seen that video, go back, watch that. There's a little bit of range footage in the initial kind of project kickoff video. And had some issues in the beginning. I was trying to convert 300 Win short mag brass down to 7mm and did not look at the drawing of both cartridges prior to trying to do that, and come to find out the 7mm version is actually the base to shoulder portion. That measurement it's roughly 40 thousandths longer on the 7mm version than the 300 Win short mag brass. So we had a massive headspace issue in that video, which caused some misfires. Not really worried about that because I was able to pick up two 50 count bags of brand new Hornady brass, 7mm Win short mag brass. Picked this up from Duck Creek Sporting Goods. I was looking around and happened to stumble upon two bags over there. I'm pretty sure Denny, he's the guy that owns it, probably the only person on the planet that had that brass available, because I could not find it anywhere else. So I'm really glad he had a couple of bags in stock. Price wasn't actually terrible. I think it was like 63 bucks for a bag of 50. Now, yes, that is slightly expensive, but when you're talking about this type of brass for a more obscure cartridge, you know, $1 a piece really isn't that bad. Plus, in the inflated times that we're living in, again, still not that bad. You're seeing a lot of just standard stuff go for almost $1 a piece, which is crazy. It blows my mind. Speaking of which, if you guys are looking for powder, then you gotta go to Mr. Big Guns in Huntsville. They have a 20% off powder sale going on right now, which is insane. Again, in the times that we're living in with inflated prices and all of that, and you know, the powder is definitely more readily available than it once was. Not back to pre-COVID pricing or anything like that, but for instance, I think a pound of accurate 4064, I think it's labeled like 41 bucks, which is a little on the higher side for accurate and you know, accurate powders. They're typically some of the more less expensive options out there, some of the cheaper options out there, but I mean, everything's elevated now, so it is what it is. But 20% off that, so comes out not a bad price, you know. So if you're looking for powder, you're wanting to go stock up on, you know, some powder that you haven't been able to find in a while, then that would be the place to go check out, see what they have. I was in there a couple of days ago. They still had a bunch of powder sitting on the shelves. I know they had a ton of CFE black or CFE BLK, however you want to call that. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, what was it? Accurate 4064, Accurate 2495, a bunch of Reloader 7. I think they have maybe Reloader 10, was it 10X maybe? I don't know. You guys got to get down there and see what all they've got. IMR 7820H, super shortcut, all that stuff. So a lot of different types of powder. Go see what they have. They're running a sale. Supposed to be getting in a pretty big shipment of powder over the next couple of weeks. Don't exactly know when, but it's north of 200 pounds that they're getting in, supposedly. Fingers crossed. So go check out those guys. Let them know I sent you. It's not going to get you a discount, but hey, it's all good. Couldn't hurt to just at least let them know where you heard the reference. So the velocity information, really I was focused on, because I didn't shoot all 50 rounds, mostly because I was having to let the barrel cool, and trying to do a velocity slash pressure test on something like a Winchester Model 70 Super Shadow with a very thin sporter barrel or hunting barrel, you know, profile. It takes a little bit of time. You got to let the thing cool off, or at least that's my approach to it. So it took me a little while. at the range to get this done, and I only shot 30 of the 50 rounds just because the 30 that I shot were the 30 that I was most interested in. These last 20, I just loaded those up for variety's sake. So these top 2 rows, these were loaded with Ramshot Magnum and Alliant Power Pro 4000 MR. The bullet that I used in both of these, it was the same bullet. It was the Hornady 162 grain SST. I was really interested in that particular bullet simply because that's going to be, in my opinion, that would be an amazing hunting option for this particular setup, this rifle, because the velocity on it in the Hornady manual, you're talking over 3,000 feet per second. I think Power Pro 4000 MR, yes, that was the highest velocity option they had listed. Luckily, I had that powder, and they show 3050 in the manual, so 3,050 feet per second in the manual is what they show you topping out at. Now, their max charge is 62.9 grains. All right, we shot all the way up to 64, so I don't recommend anyone duplicating what I did for this particular test. Don't recommend it. We were 1.1 grains over the maximum charge listed in the manual. We shot the manual overall length because this bullet has a cantilever, so we were lining everything up with the case mouth. 2.850, that is what the manual calls out. Could you stretch that out a little bit further? Yes, you probably could, depending on how the rifle is chambered, as far as being able to stretch that overall length out, gain a little bit of more, a little more case capacity, reduce your pressures at the charges that we were shooting. Probably something we could do. The fact it has a cantilever, I'm not going to do that. I want to find a really good load at this 2.85 overall length. And then for Ramshot Magnum, we shot all the way up to 75 grains. And these are half grain jumps that we were making. Shot up to 75 grains, which is 1.1 grains over the Hornady max. They call their max is 73.9, so a little bit slower burning powder on Ramshot Magnum. And this is, so don't really put a whole lot of stock into the accuracy of this. These are not even the 7mm Win short mag shots. This is something else entirely, so don't even pay attention to those two. This was only shot at 50 yards. This target was at 50 yards because it's pouring down rain while I was out there shooting, and I didn't really want to walk. I didn't want to move the target back to 100 yards. And two, having the Magneto Speed Sporter chronograph hanging off that's 20 shots, by the way. Having it hanging off the end of the barrel, I mean, that's going to have some level of impact on our accuracy and our point of aim and all that stuff. So that there will be some, I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in it, because that's, you look at that, it's like 20 shots, holy smokes, and it's like, well, that's only 50 yards. If that would have been 20 shots at 100 yards, okay, that's something to get excited about. But I was happy to see that, again, just 50 yards, but both of those powders that we tested, they're just stacking in there at 50. That's good, because if it wasn't, not so great, because I really want this bullet to work and work well. And these are going to be two great powder options. If you have this particular rifle and or cartridge, then you really need to evaluate these two powders, in my opinion, right? This is going to be used for hunting purposes. I'm leaning a little more toward Ramshot Magnum, and I'll tell you why. Because working up the charge weights here, you can see our velocities are pretty comparable throughout the entire charge weight range. We kind of jumped up in velocity a little bit quicker with Ramshot Magnum, but you can see, right, I mean, it kind of dropped back down a little bit right here at 28.58, and then jumped right back up. Okay, we're still in line, and then pretty much on par. Power Pro 4000 MR kind of lagged just a little bit behind, not by much, and then right at the end, which again, you're putting some level of stock in just one data point, right? So, take it for what it is. Take it for what it's worth, take it with a grain of salt, however you want to say it, don't really care. We're using CCI 250 Magnum primers, probably should have mentioned that. And this is brand new brass, it wasn't fire formed. So, and I might have smoked some primer pockets, who knows, going up this high, going over that far over max. And the reason why I'll probably go with Ramshot Magnum to initially work up a hunting load and see if we can get something going with that is because the lack of pressure signs that I saw shooting all the way up to 75 grains. Now, also today, hold on, gotta get some coffee. Like I was saying, it's pouring down rain. It was in the low 40s. So these are basically conditions now, the pouring down rain part, not so much. But the temperature wise, this is exactly the type of temperature that I would be hunting in, okay? Low 40s and even lower is the type of hunting conditions that I would be utilizing this cartridge, right? So I think that also helped us out in terms of our pressure. If I went out and it was summertime in Alabama, humidity through the roof, 100 degrees, and I go out there and I'm shooting these exact same loads, we're probably blowing primers and getting super stiff bolt lifts and all that. I didn't really have a stiff bolt lift out of these two. I did out of the third bullet that I tested, which was the Barnes 120 grain tip TSX. That thing was smoking, by the way. But the Magnum, the Ramshot Magnum, I mean, just really good. I started to get and I can't even get it on camera, but you can tell there's a very slight crater situation going on the primer where you're getting a little bit of flow back into that firing pin, but not by much. I mean, it's very minimal, and that's really, so it's more pronounced. This is the Power Pro 4000 MR. You can actually see it right there. See that ring around the outside of that primer, and it's not even really bad on the Power Pro 4000 MR loads either, but it does show up earlier. It showed up earlier in our testing on the Power Pro 4000 MR load than it did in the Ramshot Magnum load. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, just kept going, working my way down the charge weight range, and just saw absolutely zero pressure signs until we got down to the 74.5 and the 75. And again, it was so minor and so slight that I would feel comfortable coming back and working up a load, around this range. Now, again, that's a hunting load. That's not something that I would go out and shoot high volume. It's not even something that I would shoot in the summertime. This is something that would be strictly dedicated to hunting season, cooler, climate, cooler weather. Now, let me show you so you guys kind of see that. I'm not going to graph it and all that fun stuff. I just wanted to kind of show you guys. Here's the velocity that I got. Very comparable. We did miss the manual velocity because at their max charge, which was 62.9, they were showing 3050, right? So we were about 125 feet per second off on Power Pro 4000 MR. And then for Ramshot Magnum, their max was 73.9, right? 73. Well, we're about 100 off because that's only a grain, about a grain less there. So we were only 100 feet per second off. And then same thing over here. Their max is 73.9, so essentially 74. And they show 3,000 feet per second. So we were almost dead on with the Ramshot Magnum, about 100 feet per second off with the Power Pro load. So don't know why that is, have no idea, but that just is what it is. That's just kind of odd, right? That on one powder we basically hit the manual velocity target, and then on the other powder, because barrel length obviously doesn't change, everything is exactly the same, and we're 100 feet per second off. So that's interesting. I found that to be interesting. But there you go. Take a look at that. I'll probably post a picture over on Instagram of this stuff. That way, if you guys, or you can just pause the video, right? Document whatever you want. On the Barnes, now let's switch over to the Barnes information. These other two bullets that I didn't shoot, this is the Spear 145 grain boat tail Spitzer point, and then this is the Nosler 150 ballistic tip. So that's with the Nosler's with IMR 4831, and the Spear is with IMR 4895. Those are going to be a couple of slower options. Those are not, you know, speed demons when it comes to this particular cartridge. So not, you know, we're not going to be really seeing high velocity out of these two options here. But for the Barnes, we went with Winchester 760 as our powder, which is, I believe, actually the slowest option listed in the Barnes data, in the Barnes manual. Still, it's over 3,400 feet per second, which is moving on pretty good. And we exceeded their max by 1 grain. Their max in the manual was 66.5. We went up to 67.5. Again, I definitely don't recommend you copying this, because we saw some definite, so this is the max charges, 67.5, and look at there. We almost popped that primer, or we almost pierced the primer, and then look at that big old shiny spot. So yeah, we saw some pressure. I'm gonna switch to Ramshot Hunter, is I think one of the best velocity options that they have, and that's a powder that I actually have as well. So I'm gonna switch to that with this bullet and see what we can get up to velocity wise. The velocity was a little bit all over the place. It wasn't as linear as the Ramshot Magnum and Power Pro testing, but you can see we started off pretty decent, actually, because the manual shows, I think it's like 3416, maybe. So just over 3,400 feet per second is what the manual velocity shows at 66.5. So you can see we were basically there pretty early, and then, you know, that was kind of odd. Like I was saying, velocity was all over the place. It dropped back down, then went back up, then kind of just stayed, you know, somewhat from 64 to 66. Yeah, I mean, you had that's just a weird shot that dropped down low in velocity, but it didn't really do much in that range, in that 2 grain range. And then it jumps up over 3,500 feet per second right there at the max, the manual max. And then we pushed beyond that. It went back down 3457 and then back up over 3557. So crazy high velocities with this particular bullet, but we saw way more pressure than I'm comfortable shooting with. So gonna dial it back, gonna switch over to Ramshot Hunter, probably perform the exact same test and go from there, see how that looks. So that's it. Really long-winded video like normal. That's my specialty. Didn't see, again, almost little to no pressure signs with Ramshot Magnum. Super pumped about that. I think we can get some, you know, work up a really good load around that 3,000 feet per second mark. With a 162 grain bullet, that's elk medicine all day long. I mean, that's, you put that in the pump station and that's killing anything. So that is really awesome that we got the velocities that we did with that particular bullet at 2.85. Now, the follow-up will be, what does that look like on paper in terms of accuracy? So now that we know where we stand, somewhat, we know where we stand velocity-wise, pressure-wise, we can take that information, go from there, and work up some loads. I'll probably just do some 3-shot groups. That way it can just kind of make the YouTube world explode on the small sample size, so that way people freak out and talk about how it's invalid, and that because I'm not shooting, you know, 5,000 shot groups, then none of this testing is relevant and it's pointless. So I'm really looking forward to those comments when I do my 3-shot group testing. So that'll be awesome. Outside of that, that is it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of this. I know probably not a lot of you guys actually have this particular cartridge. This is pretty obscure at this point in time. They discontinued, I think Winchester discontinued actually making the rifles. I don't even know if anyone chambers this anymore in a factory offering. They might, Winchester might, but I don't know of anyone else that actually would. So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time. Y'all have a good one.